Okay, going live in about 5 seconds. Make it 10.
It's screaming on my end.
Okay, we are live. Hi, guys.
Yay.
Hi,
Hey.
hello everyone, and welcome to our very first Founder Friday. Happy Friday, it's the end of the week. We're excited for the weekend, and we are going to start doing these Founder Fridays for you on Fridays to help you get motivated and inspired over the weekend to take on your next week full of fire and inspiration. So today, for our first Founder Friday, Jamie and I are very, very excited to have Cynthia Gonzalez. Cynthia is one of the founders of Elite Care in San Francisco. They started as a delivery service. And she's also an activist, and she's been working really hard on the Central Coast. In fact, she is the very first legal permit holder in San Luis Obispo County since this even became legal. So Cynthia has a lot to share with us. I'm just going to turn it over to her after saying hello to Jamie, our lovely co-host.
Hi there.
And because Cynthia's got a lot to tell us, so I just want to jump into it. So Cynthia, just tell me how you got started. How did you get into cannabis? And then what led you to becoming the first permit holder? Because I know a lot of our audience is really curious about how you made that happen.
Okay, great. Delighted to be here. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Kara. It truly is an honor to be part of this first Founding Fridays of how we got to where we're at today. Many of you are probably just wrangling with the ideas. Okay, you understand this is a great industry to be in. You have the compassion, you have the interest, intrigue, and desire to do the best service that you can for the constituency of the patients that you're considering taking care of. So all those components, great components. If you absolutely have a little bit of sales and marketing background, or you certainly know someone who's been in corporate America, if you haven't solicited perhaps maybe a business consulting service, I know many of them are out there. I'm sure that Kara and Jamie can certainly direct you to some of those great sources. We ourselves are actually consultants first. That's what we did. We were in marketing research in corporate America. Spent a lot of years in dealing with negotiations, dealing with a lot of no's, and in the sales account executive profile, we actually learned how to best craft a message, how to brand ourselves, how to make that great first 3-second impression. And the reason why I'm sharing any and all of this, which sounds like it's a complete antithesis of what we should be talking about for medical cannabis and even acquiring a permit, I can't begin to tell you how critical those conditional elements of my career paths have helped to lead me to this actual monumental factor today that we're the first legal permit holders. It all was relevant. And like I said, if you yourself don't have that within your background, then hire the professionals to do it for you. But certainly, start becoming comfortable talking to people. When I say people, police chief officers, city council members, mayors, chamber of commerce presidents. And when the term activism is truly an all-inclusive term, I'm sure many of you in your professional career, and even in this endeavor have already begun those relationships, developing that networking and developing that platform of importance. And I can't tell you enough how critical and how important that is to have that. And again, align yourself with people who may be a little bit more comfortable to going to some of these group events and discussing outside of the framework of the cannabis family. We all have our cannabis family. We all have our cannabis vendors, associates that we do our relationships with. And those are great because they'll provide advice and a good foundation of resource for you as well. And maybe some good networking and some directions on how to reach the actual decision makers. So let's take it back to a real specific example. In our case here, we chose this area because we'd been coming here for the last 7 years since we had our business practice 7 years ago established in San Francisco in Marin County. We actually had started developing patients outside of those two general regions. So having family here and having family in the San Joaquin Valley and Fresno County was leading us back to these pockets. So when San Francisco started issuing out their actual permits for the brick and mortars, we felt that there was a good saturation in the market. And even though we probably could have set up shop there, it was such, as we all know, it's a little bit cost prohibitive to even live there, which I did for 7 years. But even more so if you're considering a brick and mortar, it's a little bit of a tighter environment. But the great thing is that in California, or perhaps maybe whatever state you might be representing, You have counties that have had bans in the past, but I can assure you with this huge momentum that's taking place, that too can be overcome. And we're here today to maybe perhaps just to give you some very simplistic guidelines and references on how you can start breaking some of those boundaries. And when I say breaking, I say that in the most professional and not necessarily literal sense, because what you're doing is you're not breaking boundaries. You're just opening up conversations. You're providing educational platforms to help people better understand. So when those business decision owners that are in the position to make that decision to say perhaps yes to your request to even consider overturning the bans in their communities, that you're at least giving them the full benefit of absorbing the information coming directly from yourself, who is a professional, who has definitely more reference than most of them do. We found that in every case, people were very engaged and were very interested. There isn't anyone that even had the raw stigmas of the past that hasn't become stimulated or interested now. There's just too many discoveries. There's too many medical studies and news media has been very generous about presenting a positive spin on medical cannabis today and adult use. So in light of that, when you take into consideration that the person who's going to be heralding the regulatory board for the state of California, and maybe in some of your states as well, she happened to come from the ABC base. So someone that understands alcohol certainly understands medical cannabis and adult use cannabis. Great relationship there. And that's a really pivoting point, because when you're having your discovery conversations and taking the steps to begin your educational platforms with some of your city council, your mayors, your member of the management teams for your various different cities that you're applying towards, it's really important that you get to know them as people first. Take the time to introduce yourself, take the time to express your interest, call them, be very polite. Everyone's schedule is busy. This is not on the top of mind agenda awareness for them. It is yours, it's your passion, but make that time a very conscious time. Schedule some times when you would, as if you were calling and asking as if you wanted to introduce a brand new product to them. The fact is, it's medical cannabis, and what you're introducing is an idea to allow them to give you moments of time so that you can begin at that platform of education and start sharing with them and give them an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with you. That's how you learn about their interests, their strengths, their concerns. And when you begin to go to the dais and start speaking at a city council meeting, now you've got a reference on some of the various different individuals on what their background is and where their hot buttons are, where their pulse is. Perhaps maybe in some of those one-on-one meetings, as was happened with ourselves, whether it was the chief of police, the fire chief, or the city council members, the members of the council themselves, or the mayor, every single one of them had a somewhat of a relevant story that they could share with us. And that relevance actually helped with the over 2 years that it took us to open up this market and help to draw down some of those negative defenses that people had. And when I say people, these are decision makers. These are the people that are going to consider lifting these bans. So it's really important that you take the respectable time, treat them with nothing but respect. Did I expect that it was going to take 2 years? No, we were hoping it was going to be a little bit faster approach, but it all came together, and now we have 2 or 3 cities that are considering just in this county alone. So I'd say maybe 2 or 3 more are going to be coming after the fact that the ordinances are already in place for those 2 or 3. So once it begins, it's like Mount Vesuvius. The volcanic eruption of interest has taken place. And you'll find that cities even around within a specific county will begin to start taking notice because the media is involved and the positive spins are taking place. It also gives a platform for people who have any objections to stand there at the same podium as you and your constituents who are supportive of lifting the bans in your communities. It gives them an opportunity to voice their grievances to the city council, which also gives you another opportunity, since you have a relationship with these city council members, to go back to them and ask for a secondary meeting based on a meeting that was just held and address those negative concerns and bring your research, bring your data, bring your information. I mean, these sound like really like steps that should be common sense, but if you haven't done this type of work and this is not your forte, addressing the actual business approach to talking to these people. Just because they're a mayor or city councilman doesn't mean it's as easy as talking to Jamie, Kyra, and myself right here on this platform. They're people just like you and I. The difference is you know about plant science. They do not. Or what they do know might be questionable, might be concerning, might be negative, might have the negative impulse stigma, or it might be a wonderful story of relationship to the plant itself and maybe how it's helped somebody in their family if they personally haven't had a relationship with medical cannabis. So all those things considered, is a great starting point.
This is such incredible insight and information. And I just want to recap a little bit.
Sure.
So on the one hand, we have branding and messaging when you're starting out. You've got to do that first because you have to have an identity and a message that people can relate to you and remember you by. And if you just come in with no real clear direction of who you are, no strong identity, you're going to get lost in the crowd, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you for saying that. Because
yes, thank you. Yes, no, that's very true.
This is my job. I'm doing this right now, and I'm having arguments with clients about the whole branding. They keep backburnering it, and they keep telling me that they're not going to work on their branding until they have a license or if they have approval. And I'm like, you're not credible to these people without a good business card, without a good letterhead, an email signature.
Absolutely. Website, it's all important. Critical. It's critical. It's so critical. You have to give them a foundation to support what you're saying. You have to walk in with that level of credibility. And you're absolutely right, ladies. The credibility is the branding. It's your product. It's what your intentions are to the market. It's what you plan to bring to the market. You cannot consider yourself a viable subject in this space unless you have the most minutia branding mechanisms in place. And you're right. I'm glad you're bringing that up. You don't even, that is where your first dollars should be spent in this space. That is your absolute critical mantra. So we come from marketing background and media background ourselves and business consulting. That's what we did for corporate America. So absolutely, that has to go without being said. And it's not something that you want to do sparingly. You want to make sure it's a very positive, polished presentation of yourself. And like I said, if you don't have the capability of speaking directly and having that polished delivery after you presented this beautiful product brand image, then make sure that you're bringing people on board that have the same compatibility, that can actually speak and be advocates for you. Exactly. Like a Jamie Cooper or like attending Kyra's program and find out from the Academy how best to, it's an influential environment that we're in. And if you're asking for a permit, think about it in their perspective. If you're a city council member or a mayor or a county board of supervisor or planning commissioner, what is your objective? Money into your community to make a difference in your community. It's a business. So you have to have someone that understands that part of the platform, as well as they're going to look at you and size you up as what kind of a business person are you? What does your brand say about you as a business person? What does your brand say about you as having the professional acumen to even be having these conversations with them? Because here's their bottom line. Once they understand how our business operates, no one can deny the numbers that are being presented in this market. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So if a decision maker is even considering offering you any kind of licensing to operate in their world, in their background, with their constituencies, with their blessing, then what they're considering, think about it in a larger scale. They're looking at you as a multi-million-dollar business. They don't know whether you make 5 cents a month, 5 cents a day, 5 million a day. They put us all in the same category. So you have to have that professional acumen. So again, can't emphasize enough the branding, can't emphasize enough the website, business card, business plan. We should all have our business plans in place already. If you don't, again, please don't waste your time until you've taken these absolutely critical, important steps.
Yes, protect yourself, get your finances organized, get your brand marketing straight. And that will help you also build confidence when you go in, because the next that is very important is the activism piece of it. And this part of it, you said it seems like it's pretty common sense, but I'll tell you, I even have issue doing it. I went to a fundraiser recently and I chickened out on going up to talk to the mayor because it's still it still takes, my messaging isn't down in my community. I mean, when it comes to Caden Academy and that kind of thing, sure, I've got that dialed down, but I'm not, I don't have a product like you do. So talking to city council members, I still don't have my messaging worked out, and it makes me have a lack of confidence.
Sure.
So these may seem like simple steps until you're right there on the steps of the courthouse going into the city council meeting.
Right.
And so I want to talk to you a little bit about this. And so we've added activism as a module of education in Caden Academy, because we believe that you have to, as a cannabis business, it's part of your responsibility.
Absolutely.
To become an activist locally. Because each of our municipalities are going to have different rules and regulations, and we need to work together, and we need to work with our city council, bringing our A game. So you talked about a couple of things I want to dig into a little bit more. So getting to know your city council, your chief of police, and then going to these city council meetings and finding out what those objections are, and then scheduling another meeting to address them.
Exactly.
Really, so as women, I'm going to just address this too, is that we tend to say no. Okay, bye. We got to know, we're done. And this is, you can't do that as an activist. As an activist, no is just the first step. How is it? Because you said that when you were talking about building your business earlier, you said you got a lot of no's. Tell me how how you work with those no's and how you view those no's, that you then realize, hey, I'm going to go make another appointment with these people and I'm going to deal with their no's, instead of taking that as you can't go here.
Again, I would consider each individual walking through these doors, have your professional attitude, have the professional appearance, rehearse what you're going to say, practice. And you don't want it to sound canned, but you certainly want it to have, you want to have some specific questions you have for them, because in that example where you've actually received an appointment with one of these decision makers, you're going to ask for 10 minutes. And once the 10 minutes is consumed, you know what you want to share within that 10-minute frame. Stay true to your word. If it's 10 minutes, you speak for 10 minutes. If they speak after that, then that's the courtesy they're extending to you. Like I said, to have a good, just even have a one sheet there. And I even asked the chief of police, do you mind if I refer to my notes? Absolutely. And prior to even coming to the meeting, I asked them, I said, I won't bring any medicines with me, but I'll bring the containers. Would you like me to show you a sampling of some of the medicines that we do carry? So they can touch and feel. I mean, the more that you can utilize in terms of valuing their time and space, and these are all done in an email prior to the actual one-on-one, eyeball-to-eyeball meeting that you're going to be having with these folks. So, and these are the initial stages. I mean, if I looked at the whole scan, we probably attended over. We went to every city council meeting within a three city environment. So for 2 years, probably I'm recorded at least 40, 50 messages on podiums across the area. And beyond that, I probably attended another maybe 30 meetings, one-on-one meetings with individual members. And I mean, that sounds like a lot of time and a lot of investment, but it got us to this level. And with that, we are going to be considered perhaps for the next brick and mortar in one of the cities that are considering allowing that to happen. So it all moves the way it's supposed to when you put in the time. It's just like with any other industry. So
what would you say over the 3 years that it took you to get this license or the permit that you now have? What was the percentage of time you spent on your activism activities over that 2 years?
We actually put the business almost on the shelf because this was so important. When you had a ban across the board, and it didn't sound like it was going to be lifting anytime soon with all the variables and all the members that had been here before us. And mind you, we were kind of outsiders coming in. We landed here 2 years ago. Even though I have family here, there was still that stigma of, well, you guys are all outsiders. And it was a very lonely opportunity too, I might tell you. There's probably over 700 to 1,000 delivery services that have been operating here in this backyard market. None of them came to the party until the media got excited, and then my fellow sisters and brothers started coming out. And I don't mean that as a judgment call. It was such a new, almost kind of virginal territory when it came to cannabis coming to the light, coming to a legal attention here. Because once the bans were set in place, of course, those that were still wanting to stay involved They continue to do so, but they had to really protect themselves. And I understand those courses of action and why that's critical for them to do so. But then you take us, we had our skin in the game was that we were here to actually help a couple of patients. We wanted to continue to do our work. So what I did, here was my faux pas. When we came in from San Francisco visiting and meeting patients before we'd actually moved here and started the activism work, I started testing the water. I was doing my research, knew the band was here, knew I had patients here. So I said, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to contact the mayor's office, the city council's office, and I'm going to ask them if I can meet with them. And I'm actually going to ask them if I can have a permit for medical cannabis delivery in their backyard. Nothing to lose, right? Testing the water. I did just that, and I was told over the phone that as long as I had my permit in San Francisco and Marin County, that I can actually come in here. They were ready to sign me up with a permit right then and there until they realized the extreme that I was asking for. And the poor girl over the phone, I said, okay, I'm coming by to get my permission. She says, whoa. I know I told you it was okay, but I did some background and I'm sorry, we have a ban. I just thought you wanted to be able to come in here, and since you were legal and you pay your state board of equalization taxes out of San Francisco, you just wanted to pass through our town and drop off your delivery and go on, and you wanted to get that permit to do so. I said, well then, am I entitled to do that now? She said, oh, no, I thought you were, but no, clarification. Here's the number of the next person to talk to. So that's how the dance started. It started by, you have to start somewhere. And there was, like I said, I didn't walk in, they didn't see me, I wasn't on any camera, but if I had to do that, I would have done it. It was a matter of a phone call, testing the water, seeing where their pulse is, getting some names so that the next time you came in, I didn't have that person to contact. Now I had someone who was actually going to lead me to the next level. There were a lot of levels involved. And when you asked about how many meetings, there were those types of levels and stages and preparatory factors that led us to the actual decision maker. But now that I'm looking back in retrospect, could the time have been better spent if I just gone on the website and looked up the city itself, looked at the profile of all the city councilmen, send them an invitational letter, an introductory letter, said, I'm Cynthia with Elite Care California, Elite Care SF, either the two, www. Please look at my website. We're here to absolutely help to provide you with some educational ideas on how, if you're deciding to lift the ban, or if you're considering lifting the ban in the future, we are here to help you with providing some insight and some information. Would you be open for a 5-minute meeting? That's what I would do today. Now that I know the time, I took a lot of steps, and I actually just started going to the meetings. And the timing was really important too, because what takes place at the very beginning of the year with every city council, every decision maker, every planning commission, they have their budget meetings that end in November and start on calendar year January to November. And what takes place at those first meetings is they discuss the budget. They discuss the finances. You're sitting in those pews and you're hearing their pain. And if the pain tune goes along the lines of, we need money for this and we don't have the money. We need money for this and we don't have the money. We need funding for this, we don't have the money. Can I just tell you that you mark that information down and you note that. So when it comes time and you have those face-to-face, you let them know, I attended the meeting, I understood the budgetary concerns that you might have. And even though we're talking about the importance of medical cannabis in, being delivered to your constituency, here's another concern that I feel might be helpful to you. This is a business. It's a legal business. We pay state board of equalization taxes. We have attorneys, we have accountants. We feed all the proper chains of a business that you would in your respective business outside of this role. Would you agree, Mr. Decision Maker? Yes, I would agree. Wait for those. That's the kind of dialogue. You get that. You get that buy-in. You provide the exchange of information. So that being said, we had a really good reference on what their hot buttons were. You get a pulse on what people need. You get a pulse on what their interests were. If that particular city council member said, well, they have a need for the homeless, they want more money for their homeless, you note that down. Council member number yada yada said, interest in homeless. So when you're having that dialogue conversation with them, take all your notes, and when you meet with them, you're like, I understand the plight is to have more funding for the homeless. Let's say if we were able to get permitted and even able to get a brick and mortar in your community, can I tell you that you are the controller of that funding? You're going to have access to deliver where that money goes to. That's how important your vote is. I understand that's something that's very important to you. Perhaps if you consider this as a platform, this is another revenue stream for your budget that can certainly help offset the cost factors for that. You tie it all in. You just, it's all relevant. And to me, like I said, it was second nature. But for some folks, this is not their first course. I mean, not everybody comes in as a sales and marketing or account executive or a director of sales and marketing or even a marketing research like some of us have the background. So again, there's a lot of experts out there. You have 2 online right now with Kira and with Jamie. I myself have done some consulting work for clients as well, and I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to help out in this space other people. I mean, we want to get our brick and mortar. We have a specific model that I want to bring about to the business, to the industry. But there are several models that are going to make sense, and the space is going to be welcoming to so many of us, particularly women who have a genuine, intriguing niche that they want to bring to the market. So
thank you so much, Cynthia. This is just such an incredible insight. I never would have ever thought to use that approach. But, you know, when it all comes down to the money, that is the fastest way to get people on your side, is to
absolutely
really enlighten them to that fact. Mm-hmm. So I really want to thank you for the work that you did, because I know there are a lot of women on here who are actually in the Central Coast area, and mm-hmm. you have become a pioneer. You have kind of paved the way. All of that work that you did, where you basically put your business on hold to dedicate to this.
Exactly.
Now we don't have to do that quite as much following in your footsteps. So
exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It was a little painful. There were definitely some painful moments there, but you know, living in the coast can't be a bad trade-off. It's like, okay, I'm not living in San Francisco looking at the Bay Bridge, but I'm also not spending $10,000 a month to live over there. So, you know, it was a nice little washing. One hand washed the other, and here we are still today, though. So yes, you're very welcome. And it truly was my endeavor. I have been with this plant for 46 years. I think, Carol, when we first talked, I'm going to be 60 in a couple of months, and I got to tell you, I have had my share of illnesses and conditions that would have deemed me a legal card back then. I used to be very active, and I love diving and swimming. I've hit the board many times. I'm still a professional performer. I still sing as my outlet. I have fallen off stages wearing high heel shoes. Oh, obviously a different size than a woman than I am now, but still, no matter what your weight is, when you fall off the stage in high heels, it is not a good deal at the end of the day. And then you take yourself 10, 20 years beyond those incidents happening, there is something that's going to show up in your body. Every step, every fail, every fall is prevalent after a certain age. So I am a discipline of how this plant science has kept me from a wheelchair, because I should be one by certain measurements today, and it's not going to happen. It's a discipline I've had in my system for those 46 years, and I'm here to tell you, it is a viable medicine, and it is a powerful medicine, and it is a savior to many of us. So.
Thank you. Wow. That's really great. On top of everything else, you're also a health story that's full of inspiration as well. Jamie, do we have any questions?
No questions, but I want to continue talking about this, because this is this is my life right now.
Yeah, it is.
Because I'm seeking a license for myself, but I'm also getting hired by others to do this. And I live in a community along the lakeshore of Lake Michigan. And everyone they keep saying, like, no, there's no way in hell that Grand Haven will allow this. And I keep hearing that over and over and over. And I've always been like, you know, for the last 2 years, as I kind of prepared for this, I kept saying, like, just, you know, like, we'll see, you know. And because I was out there having these conversations, well, I want to share some of my successes, because I feel like I'm in the shoes of you, like when you were doing this right now.
Great.
So last week I sat down with my sheriff, who brought in the undersheriff and the task force commander. And
Perfect.
It was a conversation that went really well. About a year and a half ago, I got appointed by our mayor to sit on a committee, and the chairman of the committee is now running for city council. I have a relationship with him. I reached out. I know, right? Yeah. I reached out to, you know, a mayoral candidate. That conversation went incredibly well. You know, so it's almost like these things are falling together, and you know, when you do it the right way, you might be surprised, because it comes down to educating people on the basics. They don't understand it. They don't understand that regulated is better than unregulated. This is what it looks like. So it is a marketing job. You have to market what it looks like in a positive way.
Yes.
And
Definitely.
so, yeah. I mean, it's all, we all have to find our marketing
voice.
Our marketing voice.
It is our marketing voice. Yes. Our marketing and branding voice. Very critical. And then some level of professional negotiation skills along the line has to be. I mean, because when I say professional, I mean, show up on time when you say you're going to be there, and be very mindful of the other person's time frame as well, because this is, you know, at first you're going to get maybe a little bit of a slight brush off, but those first 3-5 minutes in those meetings are going to be so critical. You might end up staying there a good half an hour, and really all that is just kind of helping to develop a relationship, which is also critical too. So congratulations on the fact that, Jamie, you were actually part of a council, an actual council that relating to this industry, because those are also very, very critical positions as well. You are then now in a position where you're being looked upon as the leader and professional leader. So some of the things like is when it comes to ordinances, in our case, we actually helped to craft the ordinance. We actually sat down and shared with them what they should have in their ordinance. We actually told them some of the guidelines that we would anticipate should be in an ordinance. And quite frankly, we mirrored it with what's going to take place with the regulatory state board regulations of January 1st, 2018. And we shared that with them. We said, since we're going to be licensed for a permit legally first step, why don't you mirror it to what's going to take place in the state now? There's no reason to have an ordinance today that your voters are going to approve when the regulatory board is going to say, wait a minute, you need to go back and add these components. So give them that fair that fair playing field. Let them know that you are thinking of their best interests as well, especially when you're having those meetings with chief of police and mayors, that you're there to help protect them and guide them in the best principles that would certainly lead them to making the decisions today. They're going to be the best decisions even when we get to flip the switch January 1st. So
I like to, it's really important to me that you get patients involved, you know, that are effectively using it or have these really compelling stories. However, getting them involved and helping the patients understand why it's important for them to come share their story, because there's a lot of that fear still about being arrested or being looked at, and there's so many people in my community that just haven't come out. They're really big advocates, but they haven't come out within the community because they're too scared. And so what do we have to do to kind of like build that sense of urgency? Is like, your story is really important right now to get this going.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Jamie, because we were also it was really beneficial to us, because there was a certain gentleman, his name is Devin Ward, and I'm going to refer to him because he, when he first showed up at the meetings, like I said, we were considering 3 different cities. Of those 3 cities, one gave us absolutely no. They said, we don't need the money. We don't want that situation. We're a tourist business. We make all the money. We make most money in this entire area. Go tap onto my brothers and sisters around us, neighboring cities, right? So we did. The other 2 cities that have said yes, actually had a gentleman there that had come to one of the meetings. And when he came to the first meeting, he stood up and he shared his name. He said, my name is Devin Ward, and I'm suffering from ALS, and I'm coming to you today. So the first year, he walked on his own power into those meetings and mentioned the value that medical cannabis had on his lifestyle at the time, knowing that he was facing a chronic condition that probably was going to he wasn't going to have time to perhaps maybe reverse the complete damages of ALS. And as we know, it's a very fast progressive disease. By the time we actually got the licensing, he had gone to one of the meetings, and he's been in a wheelchair now with oxygen tank. And so he's definitely progressing with his disease. But he was the first delivery that I made, and I made sure that the media was there to catch that, because it wouldn't have happened it wouldn't have come together. And even the city councilman said, we probably would not have made our decision in agreement if it had not been for that patient showing up, you know, initially on his own 2 legs, and then now having to show up in a wheelchair. No one could deny the value of seeing that person come through those doors and still plead and say, please don't send me to a parking lot to get my medicines. Please don't send me to the phrase of the county or the city to get my medicine. Please allow a company like, Elite Care or some of the other delivery service that he'd been using in the past to continue to provide me with the care that I need. I'm taking Western medicine. I can't deny that. I need something that's going to help support even that platform of care. And with that, a pin could drop after he finished his plea. So, how do we go about encouraging perhaps maybe members that we are treating now in our businesses and our service to feel comfortable enough? I can honestly tell you, if you share with them the importance that it would make, that they would be helping other people beyond them. It's as simple as that. It's just saying it's encouraged when people understand the importance of someone like you and your condition actually seeing this medicine as improving their life on any level. It really does mean a lot to them as decision makers. You can help influence them greatly. And some might be willing on that premise alone, and some might need a little extra coaching, but whatever you can do to get them there, it really presents the positive image. I can state what I stated, and I certainly had other members that did the same thing, but what was most compelling is seeing that man walk through those doors for the first year of meetings, and sadly having to come to those same doors in a wheelchair, but still with the same plea. Let this happen. We need this in our city. Safe practices. Companies like these need to come and help us.
Well, and I think that's what people don't understand is that, the city councils just make the assumption that the need isn't there. And it's because
Correct.
people aren't coming out to voice that, like, we really need this. Like in Michigan, like on the West Side State, there are barely any dispensaries. So everyone's having to drive 2 hours to Lansing, to the middle part of the state, to get their medicine right now.
Wow.
And everybody's scared too, because we're transitioning into the regulatory structure, and the state starts accepting applications in December, and everyone's talking about these dispensaries getting shut down between when the state starts accepting applications and when they start granting them. And that's a huge fear. And
it is.
I presented a couple of nights ago to a city council, and they actually had a lot of concerns about that. They were asking, well, what's going to happen with all these, 240,000 patients? What are they going to do then? How are they going to get their product? And I was pretty impressed with how concerned they were.
Sure.
What do you suggest as far as community building in your community? I've been using Facebook groups as a resource to do that. But, are there any other suggestions for that?
You might want to, this is something that took place before one of the cities nearby here too, that is allowing the brick and mortars and allowing manufacturing. Of the three cities, two are saying yes. And they actually had to put it on the ballot because they were going full throttle. They were going to offer everything, the dispensaries, manufacturing, the retail, and the labs, and everything in their city. That's in Grover Beach nearby. And we were very instrumental in making that happen. But to answer your question, one of the things that had to happen was getting the information out for the constituency. Most of these cities don't have the financial wherewithal to do it. So there were fundraisers that were being set up with delivery services coming together as a community and saying, let us help offset some of that educational cost for you. Maybe we can take up a fundraiser fee amongst us to help you maybe send out an educational piece to all the constituencies in your community. If you can offer to do that, and we're not talking thousands of dollars from each individual delivery, but let's say there's 50 of you. You each pony up $100. That's $5,000. That's 2 campaigns, depending on how many households you have to do an outstreak. Any measure of in-kind that you can provide as a group, not as an individual, because they can't show bias to any one individual. But if you go in with the front, with the other, networking of delivery services, offer to do some of that community education. It's got to be an educational platform, and that's where every community would certainly thrive in getting something out to each household, letting them know that there's an interest. Because again, that starts helping to weed up and out the concerns, the stigmas, and the positive attributes that would come to people who are either going to support or going to have concerns and want to voice that to their city council. So it's a good way to bring all that attention to light.
I love it. And then what do you do? I'm sure you dealt with this a lot, of people riding your coattail. I mean, you were doing all the groundwork for this, and I'm seeing a lot of people like always asking me, well, how about we go after a community that's already being approached? And it really leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because I'm like, some of my clients are already spending money to do all this work, and then here are these other license seekers. They're trying to come underneath and try to take the opportunity away from my client. And it's so frustrating because, you know, the municipality says, oh yeah, you can be here, but it's the state who ultimately decides. And I feel bad for the license seekers that spend the money and the resources to do that, and the state ends up picking the other guy.
Right. That's a really, we too have had a bad taste in our mouth. Like I said, 2 cities said yes. We were successful in getting 2 cities to say yes. And we have opted to not even apply with the 1 city that is going to allow the brick and mortar. So even the opportunity to open up that multi-million-dollar service today, right now in my backyard, I'm sidestepping that. And we're sticking with the company that said, or with the city, excuse me, that said, we'll allow legal delivery right now and see how it works. And the next step would be the brick and mortar. And if you play your cards right, and if you are credible and professional and respectful and mindful of the laws, then, you know, would we consider you? Yes, but we'd also want to do it in a equal and fair platform so that everyone would get an opportunity. Now, there are going to be communities that just cannot, for the life of them, play fair. They will make decisions based on a lot of variables that you'll either be able, you'll figure them out quickly because those things were revealed to you. The only thing I would say to caution those folks is try not to set yourself up on a 10-year lease with your businesses. I mean, those people that might be subject to either getting that license permit or not. Let's say, for instance, in our case, we've got 700 or 1,000 delivery companies here in this backyard in SLO County. So far, there's only going to be 1 city that's allowing 2 brick and mortars. And in our case, they were going to allow 3 actual legal permits in the 2nd city. They've given us the 1, and we're in a wait and see for the other 2. As we sit here, the last 2 days, the other city has had 20 applicants file for the brick and mortars. We were not of those 20. We chose not to. Number one, when they start telling our businesses that we have to go out into this region, into a zone that's probably not as desirable for the type of medical type of practice that we want to establish, it has to be a good fit for your company. But in your case, you're talking about folks that have already invested the money, have actually walked to the door, and they're now in their position where they want to know how can they move themselves up to the front of the line. Mm-hmm. Have a great business plan, read that ordinance thoroughly, make sure you understand and you have covered every single step. If you can't speak, if you're the business owner and you are not comfortable speaking in front of those decision makers and you haven't taken the time to get to know them on a personal basis, you haven't done that networking step, do as much of that as you can before you actually, if you are applying, then of course you actually have an appointment date to meet with them and there's steps involved with that. But make sure you try to get as much of that done before you even make that investment in yourself. I know it's difficult because what you're sharing is people, that's kind of like, now we're talking the cart before the horse, because your people are established. They have businesses. They are subject to either have them raided, closed, or not allowed to have a license to continue their practice. 3 really bad variables. So I feel bad for those folks. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of them that are going to be, part of the change-ups that's going to take place. In my theory, I'm hoping that the state, in your state and all states considered, that the regulatory boards understand that there's a need for boutiques, service delivery, and brick and mortars, middle size, and then the big chain. I hope that they see the value in having all of us playing in the same environment. That's my hope. But all these decision makers at that level have a little different agenda. And can we stop the backdoor activities that are pushing people to the front of the line before, say, your client or somebody else who deserves that license or permit? I wish I could tell you there's a way for us to put a button on that and make that, pause button, but we just can't. It's the risk we take for getting involved in this business. A lot of the variables are just that. A lot of backdoor deals are being made. There's a lot of perhaps maybe some unhandedness. It's a cash and carry business, right? We're all kind of subject to the confines of what this business really is today. It still has a lot of difficult variables, unlike a business that is a standard business where a permit and all this would be. We don't even get to have write-offs, for crying out loud. We have to find creative ways in which we can have write-offs for those of us in this space. So I wish I could answer that question and give you a solid answer, and I don't mean to be dancing around it, but there is a lot of illegalities that are taking place in our industry, and they're not going to go away tomorrow. So for those that, like I said, that are in that position where they're going to apply for the license, my words to them are, if you're in the space now and you're operating under the radar and you are concerned about not being able to fulfill the obligations and get that coveted permit to get the licensing, and this sounds terrible, but invest wisely. I hope you made enough money, you invested wisely. If you haven't positioned yourself and you don't feel that your odds are in your favor to even be considered as such, then find out if you can align yourself with someone that you feel is in that position. Maybe they have a need for your services to be aligned with their services. Some of these smaller communities, you're seeing them do a co-op effort where, someone's just going to handle delivery. Negotiate something so that you're not left out of the fray. Let them know if you've got patients and you have a number of patients, you have something to offer to a service, to a business. I mean, don't discount yourself and all that you've done in the time frame that you've had in this space. I mean, everything is of value. But again, relating to those top decision makers, I can't put enough credence in how important that is. But that still isn't any assurance that you're going to be considered the final. Yeah.
And then lastly,
Go ahead,
you offer revenue or a certain amount of money as a solution for a need in the community without coming across as a bribe. Like, let's say that there's concern about adolescent use and you decide to offer a portion of your revenue or something, because I feel like that's a concern. Like, some city council members look at that as kind of a bribe, but
it is considered a bribe, right? It is a bribe. I mean, that's a black and white issue. That is considered a bribe. So let's take that same circumstance. There's a concern about youth. So the key word there is youth. You take a look at the youth service centers in that community, in that city council. What kind of practices and events take place with that youth? Rather than saying, I want to give you money for that, just say you're having an event that is youth oriented. It's taking place in the next 3 months. I'd like to sponsor that. I'd like to donate to that. Now you're taking a legal course. You're not handing them money to take care of a problem. You're handing them money because that is a business professional, and that is an acceptable business decision to sponsor an event that relates back to that again. So when you have that one-on-one conversation, then you can say to that decision maker, that city council person, how was the event? I hope you appreciate the fact that we were pleased that we were able to help support your group, and I hope those dollars went to help to support your end cause. So kind of see how it relates. So try to definitely stay on the legal fray as much as possible. But there's a way that you can circumvent that so it doesn't come across as you're trying to buy your way into the community.
Yes. Oh my God, Cynthia, I want to hug you. I wish I could.
Group hug.
Seriously.
Group hug.
Like, I'm so excited. Like, I cannot wait to share this video with my audience, because today we talked about the struggle that our state is having right now. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. We're certainly all in the same position, and none of us, I mean, we all have the cloud looming over us. And here's the interesting thing. When we did our live scan, and we actually had to do a drug test prior to, so we had to do a little cleansing before, because in corporate America, I'm very used to doing a 24-hour cleansing, because if they're going to give you a company car and expense account, you had to meet certain criteria with corporate America, Fortune 500 companies. And so I was able to do that by using a natural cleanse that literally will kind of remove most of the THC out of my system. But after 46 years, I'm sure there was a trace or whatever, but it wasn't enough to show up on a radar. The reason why I'm sharing that is that knowing that I had to do that in the preparation for the DOJ live scan, I thought it was interesting, because our local police department stated that even though there's other cities and the Department of Justice, which is federal, right, which is the entire United States, all these cities that they had permits, and I don't understand how that was possible, because when we were applying, We were told that the reason why it was so difficult to get a permit with the DOJ, or actually for a live scan, is that there wasn't even a drop down in the Department of Justice's application software that showed medical cannabis. So it led me to think, how did all these people get their permits when there wasn't even an impetus in the very first level of applying for a DOJ live scan permit? You couldn't even add a number there because it didn't exist until literally our community right here in Arroyo Grande, California pushed the pedal. We had a police officer that was so diligent. He would call every 3 days, coming up with solutions with the DOJ and say, why don't we try this? Why don't you try this? How about if we do this? He stayed on top of it until he got that portion of that work done for us. Amazing.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So now there's a drop down in the DOJ. So if anybody wants to go and get their legal permit in the United States, we now have a drop down, which didn't even exist before we got our permit. So again, it made me question. I thought, wait a minute, how do we do it in the other cities? It doesn't matter because we got them. I don't know what their system was, but it wasn't through the DOJ. But now there's a drop down for medical cannabis in the DOJ for us to get our live scan testing and get it done and so now some of us, well, we're in the database. We're lonely. We're 00. Our numbers are 00001 and 00002. So myself and my partner, we're 1 and 2 right now.
Well, I definitely echo Jamie's sentiment about giving you a big hug because this has just really blown my mind. Thank you so much for your generosity and sharing all of this information with us. I just want to do a quick recap so that anyone who tuned in late, some really important takeaways. Get your branding and your messaging and your look and show up dressed professionally. Do your hair. Wear clothes that represent you as a professional, not someone who's coming off the street and doesn't have their act together, is not a professional. We are trying to normalize this industry, and every step that you take with a city council, with a sheriff, you've got to do it as a professional because we need to legitimize this. This is just another industry. We really are. We need to be treated that way. Get to know your city council, your chief of police. Learn about what is important to them, what organizations, what issues within the city are important. Find out how you can participate in changing that, helping them. Talk to them about the tax implications and how that money can actually be moved from the cannabis tax dollars into supporting the things the city needs. Set up second meetings. Don't be afraid to go and actually talk to them about their issues. Find out how you can help them, how you can contribute to the things that are actually important to these city council members. Also, go and find out what the city budget is. Listen to the needs that they have, and then talk to them about those very things. Let's see, and then I love this one. So Jamie and I talk about this quite a bit, this idea of co-opetition. And we cannot deny the fact that we're each individual businesses. We each have our own bottom line, and there are only so many permits. There are only so many licenses that are going to be handed out. But I love this solution. If you have patience, if you actually have a business, call other businesses that you think may be first in line for those permits and licenses and start a co-op. Offer them your services, offer them your patience, offer to be partners with them. I think that's brilliant. And I would not be surprised to find that a lot more women are doing that and accepting that offer as business leaders than our male and our brothers and our male counterparts, because we are a little more comfortable with the idea of building partnerships and relationships with each other. So that is something that you can do, ladies. You do not have to be on your own. We are creating a movement right now that is all about helping each other because we are better together. And that is such a brilliant, brilliant way around it. Don't take no for an answer. Find ways. And ladies, if you need help, I highly recommend you reach out to Cynthia and just ask her, because this woman is full of brilliant solutions. She does not take no for an answer. We all have a lot to learn from her. So thank you so much for your time, Cynthia. It's been so inspiring.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions, Jamie?
No questions. We have a quiet audience today, but if you guys have any questions and you watch this video outside of it being live, please feel free to post them there. Cynthia will probably hop in and maybe help answer some. I will, Kira will. So this is what this Kaden Academy is for. That's what the Women Entrepreneurs in Cannabis group is for, is to be a resource for you.
Yeah.
Delighted to be here, ladies. Thank you for asking me. I appreciate having this time to be able to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mwah. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you soon. And Cynthia, we are going to have you back at some point. You just have so much information and knowledge to share. Yeah, I feel like we've just kind of scratched the surface with you today.
That's great. No, happy to do so anytime. Thank you so much, ladies. Happy Friday, everyone.
Bye.
Safe healing. Bye-bye.